Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of VCTV. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott, and I'm joined by two outstanding investors from opposite sides of the world today to talk about smart cities and the digital economy, what's happening, what's not happening, where is technology playing a role in the future of our cities? More importantly, how does the digital economy that we've all been living and are moving forward and building towards affect and impact our cities as well? Well, we're going to talk about all that and much more today. But first, thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you hear, click subscribe, share the episode, and check us out on the archive on LATOKEN.com to hear from both our speakers today and from all speakers of the VCTV family. And at any time, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, drop them in our comments box across all social media. And if I'm able to ask the question in real time to today's speakers, we will. If not, we're all available 24/7, 365 on social media as well. If you'd like to be on a show like today as an investor or as an entrepreneur, reach out to the team and or myself. We'll find that right spot for you. Speaking of team, a big thank you to the LATOKEN team and to Maria and Hasmik for making VCTV possible every single day. With that, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. Again, we're going to be talking about smart cities and the impact that cities will have or face as the digital economy continues to grow for each and every one of us. Also, today at 11:30 a.m. Pacific, find us in Clubhouse as we'll be breaking down today's topic even further and speaking about all that's happening in the blockchain and crypto space as well. But before we get to that any further, let's go ahead and start introducing today's guest. Harsh, welcome back to today's show. It's a pleasure to have you. A little intro and a little background for everybody.
Hey Kyle, glad to be back. Glad to be back to the VCTV family. A short bio about myself. I'm a venture partner currently with our ventures, helping early stage startups raise funds all the way up to $10 million. Additionally, I also help startups grow their business, build strategic partnerships, make the right connections, and help them expand not just within India, but even expand to outside India as well. So if any startup needs any help, feel free to reach out to me on Facebook and LinkedIn. And currently, I've also created a small Facebook group called Startup Hackers. Basically, the idea is all the early stage founders, particularly in India and developing countries who don't have access to this kind of information and knowledge, I'm trying to help out as much as I can. So a lot of free stuff, free knowledge being shared in my Facebook group. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Harsh. Gary Fowler, welcome back to the show. It's a pleasure. A little intro, a little background for everybody.
Yeah, great to be here, Kyle, and see my friend Harsh. I feel like we're, as we've said earlier, part of the family. So, my name's Gary Fowler. I'm a serial entrepreneur investor. I've done 17 companies, been involved in 2 unicorns as a founder of part of the senior team. Click Software sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also Eva.ai, an AI HR tech company that I founded 5 years ago, almost to the day. So, love artificial intelligence and quantum computing. Today, actually 2 years ago, I co-founded a company called GSD Venture Studios, where I'm the CEO, president, and co-founder of. We're a premier AI and quantum venture studios, and we look for companies all over the world because we believe intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world, but opportunities aren't. We curate those companies and use Silicon Valley as a port to the rest of the world to get the right kind of valuations, right kind of partnerships, and the right kind of environment to help the company grow. So I also write a lot. I've written over 100 articles in the last year about AI and quantum, and just published one on cognitive cloud computing 2 days ago in Forbes. Just love it. And these are exciting times, and it's great to be part of it. Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you. And you guys are right. These are exciting times. They're also very interesting times if we look towards where this digital economy that we have built really again over the last 18 months, but more importantly, over the last decade. We've been building into the idea of a digital economy and what we are seeing today for many years. I mean, again, go back to the early days of the web, bring it forward to web and mobile, bring in connected devices, bring in the idea of the Internet of Things and these connected cities that we've started building. You've now got a kind of a digital economy offline, bring that online as everything we do is now online, right? From marketplaces to gaming to how we live and interact, how we work, everything is now with a computer screen in front of us. But what impact does this have on the future of smart cities? or future of cities in general. Maybe Gary, do you want to kick us off with that? I know you're doing some work in Miami, but you've also done some work in general around this topic. So how is this all looking from your view, and maybe even throw artificial intelligence on how that's going to impact that as we get more data collected in these cities?
Yeah,
as well?
I mean, I recently, actually a couple months ago, I had the head of the Smart Cities Initiative worldwide for Intel, and Sunil Sharma. And one of the things we talked about is, how things are changing. And I mean, let's look at it, Kyle. I mean, it's a couple things. One is really electrify everything. Look at what we have today. I mean, from bicycles to scooters to buses, et cetera. Although we need to build the right infrastructure. I just heard yesterday that in Detroit, they have electric buses, but they have a diesel generator that's used to power the buses up. So it's kind of interesting. We need to go down through and really completely, it's not just about building a facade. It's about actually making a dent in the universe. So look at where we are. I mean, it's the key is, do we have the ability to collect the data? So simple thing we mentioned on the show with Sunil is, if we look at lights, turning signals, red lights, I mean, those things are only updated every 8 years today on average. So, and how much does traffic change? How much does population density change, construction, et cetera? So, but yet they're only updated every 8 years. Imagine the capability of literally on a moment's notice being able to, in a smart way, to be able to control the flow of traffic. I mean, it's one of the big reasons why we have traffic jams. And the other part of it is, it's one of the reasons why we have increased pollution, because the cars are just sitting. So at a very fundamental level, that electrification of everything is coming now. And it's really an integrated strategy. So how do communities, from a sustainability standpoint, to be able to build those smart buildings in a smart city? And then what are the limitations of the smart city? Do we have cameras that watch our every movement like they do in the UK? Where does it go from smart to obtrusive, or intrusive? So we need to go down through and look at some of the parameters, but it's really exciting because we are finally at a time where we can use these technologies to do things in an entirely different way. And if we talk about the digital transformation of the economy, I mean, we're there, right? McKinsey said 92% of the companies were making a digital transformation. This was 2 years ago, and they were going to do it in 10 years. Well, we've had to do it in months. And it wouldn't have happened unless we would have had this push.
Yeah, you're right. And I mean, some of this work was happening beforehand, just to give credit back to those who have put in that effort. I mean, you look at the city of San Diego, you look at the city of Palo Alto, you look at many cities across the country. There has been these city infrastructures digitized in some way, shape, or form, working back to the connected vehicles and also with sensors as a whole. But to your point, I mean, bringing that all together with the digital economy that we're living in general, it's a different story as to what has happened recently. Noble, welcome to the show as well. Same question to you. I mean, how will this digital economy, as it's continuing to progress and more aggressively, impact the future of our cities, intelligent or lack thereof?
Yeah, it's one of the biggest things is access for everybody to be able to buy and acquire things. One of the clients that we're in the middle of putting together a raise for, and then that we're investing in, they actually have a whole setup where they're taking smart bus stops, and then created smart bus stops that are fully Wi-Fi, internet connected, 5G plus available, so that when people go around, there's no intermittent disruption of service. And so, and this is happening globally, where people are just gaining access to the net. I think it's, the conversation has been on and off whether or not the internet and the World Wide Web is a utility, or is it something that is an ancillary, extra that people have. And it's becoming more and more a utility that people are not going to be able to live and work without the internet, and it's global. And so, and now with digital currency, that's dovetailed perfectly, because without the net, without the web being accessible to everyone, then how do you buy things? How do you prove your identity? How do you interact? And China is a prime example of it. We talk about smart cities. China, various parts of Africa, they leapfrog the age where you had to wire everything, and now they've created cities that are fully interconnected. It's really the U.S. has been driven behind that curve, in which the cities are all connected and the information is seamless from me to you. I mean, there's people in market stalls, open air market stalls, that use digital payments all across the world, and you would never imagine that some rural farmer is operating on his phone, fully digitally identified, and buying and selling goods and services. And so this is, for us in the Western world, and especially in the United States, it still seems so bizarre. Whereas everyone else, they were doing this before we had digital currency. The primary digital currency in Africa for almost 2 decades was cell phone minutes, and they were using their cell phones to transfer, buy, using cell phone minutes to buy, transfer, and purchase goods. So this idea of a digital city has been going on all over the place because they had to start there.
Mm-hmm. So how do we, now that we've started there, and Harsh, I'll come to you here in just a minute, but now that we started there, how do we actually get there in the majority of cities around just the states, but in general? I mean, what's that next step? What do we need to do, or what are those next few steps that need to happen for this to become a reality? I've heard about smart cities for 10 years.
Yeah.
Cities don't feel that intelligent to me. How do we get there?
I think that, in this instance, technology meets bureaucracy, right? Gary said it properly. Everyone gets this idea, we got to get these electric buses, but then they're still operating with diesel generators. So it's this idea that city planning has to be brought back into the conversation, and it should not be just politician driven. It has to be a concerted effort to spend the money in a way that makes sense. What happened in Texas in the recent storm is tragic, and is a prime example of what the disjointed municipality system could potentially look like, particularly in Texas, where every city had its own electrical grid, and it was functioning separately with one overseer that wasn't even really an overseer, it was a suggester. We have to really start looking forward to the idea that this is not about today or tomorrow. This has to be about the next 10 years, the next 15 years, and the planning has to be started at the root. And I do believe part of that initial conversation is that the web is for everybody, and that this idea that people have to pay for it or have to pay exorbitant amounts for speed has to be eliminated. We've gone back and forth in the United States with this whole net neutrality concept, and whether or not you can throttle internet speeds in the rural areas but let it go fast. That conversation has to end, and we have to have one unified fast speed internet that starts getting people realizing that everybody is allowed free access to both the net, free access to both the current and modern communications, and just all the technology that's available. People are getting there, but it has to be non-politicized.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I appreciate that. And Gary, I know you have something maybe to add around AI, but before you do, Harsh, anything to add in general? I mean, any view that you have from on the ground in India, a city or country, pardon me, that has been a little bit progressive recently in the past few months around today's topic. Anything to add on to Noble and Gary's point, but also just what you're seeing on the ground?
Yeah, so definitely in India, particularly, we've had a lot of smart cities projects where we kind of expanded and tried to input, technology in a lot of the smaller cities, right? But I have slightly a more broader perspective on something like this, right? I think this is an opportunity to completely rethink how our cities are being planned and how our towns are being planned, right? If you look at it broadly across the world, the pattern is similar. In every country, you have 10, 15 major cities which drive much of the economy of the country, pretty much 70% of the economy of the country. Then you have these tier 2, tier 3 cities, which are pretty much average. What happens because of that is the top 15, 20 cities which are there, they're extremely starved of infrastructure. They're hotbeds for pollution, hotbeds for carbon emission, greenhouse gases emission. It's in an extremely bad shape, right? Particularly post-COVID, now what has happened is there's been a mass exodus from these cities, and people have found out, staying in the suburbs or staying in the smaller towns are actually far more comfortable. They can have a better life and still kind of virtually communicate, right? So now this actually gives us the opportunities that instead of having like 10, 15 mega cities with all the assets and all the resources, we can have like a couple hundred cities. Each of them can be well planned, well thought out, well executed, and give people opportunities in those smaller towns as well, who currently had to kind of leave their families back and come to the cities because they had no choice. But instead, if we kind of create those opportunities over there, give those smaller small town people the opportunity that yes, even you can work hard, kind of bring yourself up, that will kind of open up the economy a lot more further. Because what will then happen is currently the intellectual capital that is being used is kind of focused only in the cities, and we're not tapping into the resources of the smaller towns, right? That way we'll not only tap into the resources over there, but also expand the knowledge and the facilities across the smaller towns and across the country, and not just restrict it to the few handful of cities which are driving much of the revenues.
It's an interesting point. So now if we look at cities in general, thank you, Harsh. So we look at cities on a global scale now, and really look at that next step. Back to my question for Gary and Noble, or excuse me, Noble. Gary, I mean, how do you see this all kind of rolling out? I mean, even with artificial intelligence, throwing quantum, throwing blockchain, throwing all the technologies we talk about here on VCTV, let's say we get through the red tape, we get through government. How does the mixture of, again, a digital economy work with a smart and intelligent city? Regardless if people are coming back or not coming back, we won't get into that debate as it has been just taken its toll here in the United States. Let's just look at, if we get through the red tape, we've got approvals, what does the world look like with these two blended together? So the digital economy, the idea of robots delivering food, marketplaces being open 24/7, what does this all look like in your mind for you?
For me,
Oh, well, that was good. We're gonna mute you. You froze. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so you're back. Yeah. Let me ask you maybe a different question. That one seemed to freeze, so maybe that was an omen. We'll just take a step back. Where are the opportunities for investing in the blend of a digital economy and a smart or intelligent city? How about that? Where are the opportunities, whether it be technologies or very specific services that are necessary? And we lost Gary. So maybe these are all bad questions at this point. So Noble, I'm gonna throw it to you first. Hopefully you don't drop. Where are those opportunities? Digital economy, smart cities. As I said, we've got robotics starting to enter the picture, as we've got deliveries happening with robotics. We've got supply chain and logistics all over the place on hyper localization in those hyper local logistics centers. What are you seeing as terms of other opportunities in the near future?
I'm focused still highly on augmented reality, VR, and we have holographic technology. Apple said that they're all focused on holographic technology. These things, and it's great. Delivery of food and services, having AI, finally seeing true drone technology being part of the deliver framework. It's on and off discussion, but companies are really in the middle of still doing it. You have Nightscope, who the founder's been on my podcast, who's got autonomous security robots that can roam cities. You have, but all that requires access to a consistent and custom stream of the internet, right? And the web, because a lot of this stuff is not on the device; it's communicating across the entire network. And that's why my whole focus is these cities, they have to lay a foundation that allows 6G, 7G, full optics, because this communication has to be done seamlessly. We can't have glitches where people just disappear or freeze in the middle of a conversation, right? So, this stuff has to be one seamless, connected system. And so I see really cool things. I was talking about the Hyperloop last night. That's a huge thing. Virgin, when they expand that, I believe that's part of the overall, smart city concept, just to be able to travel back and forth to multiple cities. Harsh made it a great point. Up until now, we've had 15 highly concentrated cities. When we have 100 cities planned out, we need to be able to get to them quickly. And so there's so many cool things that when I see the opportunities, holograms, travel, transportation, new forms of energy, because you need to have the energy grid be able to fully communicate with one another, no matter what sources you have. The cities that are closer to the ocean really are going to have to start utilizing wave energy. There's all these really fun things that I can imagine a new world that isn't so fixated on, is it green technology or is it fossil fuel, but more importantly, does it make sense for this city?
Agreed, and thank you. I mean, that seamless integration, to your point, has to happen. I mean, bringing in AR too. I mean, we look at Niantic and Pokemon Go, and how what that brought, just opening our eyes in the early versions of that as well. So I guess that's kind of an interesting question when it comes to gaming. Do you see gamification playing a role in the future of smart cities as we bring?
Oh yeah, absolutely, Kyle. You know, the funny thing is, in any form, to make any of this stuff work, right? The digital economy, for people to want to utilize different technologies, it all has to be gamified. People are now, you know, we have Brave browser, which I've been a big crypto investor now, which pays people for using a web browser. But you know, tokens. You have there's so many projects, that things that people do in ordinary life, their ID and their personal identity now being things that are being put on blockchain for ownership. That's gamified, so that when people want to access it, then they have to pay you in tokens to be able to sell you items. The idea that all things that you do normally from a day-to-day basis becomes gamified and you're going to be paid for it is right around the corner. No more free liberty to make billion-dollar companies off of who you are.
So digital currencies, let's jump into that for a second. You talked about Brave and its reward system. How would a reward system and identity, by the way, just to not let that slip for a second, digital identity in general is a huge part of not only the digital economy, but the future of cities. And we'll come back to that. Noble did mention that, so I wanted to make that clear. But digital currencies and rewards. Noble, talk to us about this in terms of a smart city. I mean, this could be an entire new income stream, and maybe not even an income stream. Maybe we don't want to call that that. There is an entire reward system that can be built into everything we do within a city, right? You drive over a bridge, transaction has happened, but maybe you're also getting a reward if you are taking a bus, for instance, or public transportation.
Exactly.
There could be the same thing when you're walking. Talk to us a little bit about maybe that futuristic, because look, here on VCTV, we talk about the opportunities now. We also talk about the opportunities in the future. So paint us that picture of maybe that digital reward system that's coming.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is, we're starting to see the nascent smart contract interaction. And, you know, Gary talks, you know, it's phenomenal about AI and how the integration. AI will track people. You know, you will have an AI buddy, and make no mistake about it. You know, the idea of this all-encompassing AI is great, but that AI will deal with your own personal AI concierge. And that AI concierge will give you suggestions, things to do, and tell you where to go in order to optimize both your day efficiency and how you earn functioning in the city. So maybe the city will, you know, if it's a push for a green day, like you mentioned, and everyone's riding the bus, it'll tell you how to get to where you need to go and not lose efficiency, and you'll earn from the city for making it more green. Instead of the carbon tax credits going to some major corporation, you receive them as potential tax credit. It'll drive you to do your bike. It may change how you function in the home, because remember, smart cities don't function without smart homes. And there's been this encompassing push for people to have homes that monitor their energy usage, monitor their gas usage, monitor their water usage. And these things will integrate back and forth. The city itself is comprised of both people, citizens, and families. And those, as an integrated unit, will be connected to how the life of the city functions. And the only way that that happens is with AI. You know, we as individuals don't know all the loopholes and how those things function. And you have to have some idea on how to manage it. People just can't manage all of it alone. Is that saying that AI, and this is the whole misunderstanding about AI, artificial intelligence runs on multiple streams and multiple levels. The idea of some megalomaniac artificial intelligence running everything, maybe there's a potential for it, but most AI is far from that. It just reduces the burden of the information overload that you have. And so the idea
overload might have been the right word. That may have been the right term.
But it is, because we're inundated. I think Gary said it, the amount of information that we're dealing with, and Gary, you jump in, that's your back, but I think it's like you said, it goes between us and the moon like 300, 400 times. I mean, it's too much information for us to be able to sift through. You can quote yourself better than I can, though. That's your back.
Gary, I think you're back with us. So if you missed it, Noble has talked about the data overlords that exist in our world and how we are inundated by them and just crushed. Happy Friday, everyone. We're having a good day today. We are just crushed by data and ruled by it, right? Positively and negatively. Look at that, Noble. I can spin it just the same. We are positively run by this data, and he's right. Smart homes. You've got smart watches. You've got smart devices. You've got your everyday life. You've got your smart homes. You've got smart cities. You've got your connected car. You've got. Next thing you know, you don't even know where to stand. You don't know where to go because there's just so much you have to manage. And artificial intelligence does play a role in this from a city's perspective, but really just our lives. So bringing it all together, digital economy, artificial intelligence, how does it help really lessen the burden of this data influx that we have in some way, shape, or form? And I'll throw it out there as I think Gary has dropped for a second is, the models that we're building. The thing is over the last couple of years, Noble and Harsh, I mean, we've gathered a lot of data that may be expired and no longer valuable in terms of real-time sense, but data that we can learn from and build new models and actually develop things for this as well. And Noble, you're right. I mean, we have talked about connected homes and connected buildings for a long time. It was a big jump because it's a big infrastructure upgrade, to be fair, right? It's a huge mindset. It's an infrastructure upgrade. Those will take a long time. But now we're at this new starting point to kind of really hit that on the ground and running. And Harsh, I mean, what opportunities are you seeing? We've talked the AI side for a little bit. Tell us about what you're seeing in terms of opportunities for those that are listening, either as investors or as entrepreneurs, to really start building in this space.
So Noble actually mentioned some really interesting points out there. So to kind of build on that, we actually have an opportunity to completely rethink how the society is currently shaped and structured right now, right? So you kind of put gamification and reward-based systems for people performing specific kind of tasks, right? With everything being interconnected, imagine how we can recondition the society and ensure that the best behaviors are being rewarded the right way, right? Currently, if you look at it, there is particularly no incentive for anyone to play by the rules, right? If someone is driving along the same line, he has no incentive to do that. He can anyways just cut anytime he wants, and that can lead to a crazy accident. It happened about 2 weeks back in Texas, where about 100 of cars got lined up and they all bumped into one another. So if we have that kind of a gamification and reward-based system, what that can do is we can incentivize good behavior in a way and recondition the people in a way that we can restructure the entire economy. And additionally, people who are paying the most taxes, we can kind of put those reward systems into there as well, so that they get a privileged base of service. They get that the brownie points to kind of boast themselves that yes, we are paying higher taxes, we get access to better services, better facilities. The possibilities are endless when we can completely rethink how the social structure is embedded right now. Right now, if you look at the society, in a way, it may not be the politically correct way of saying it, but kind of rewards bad behavior. So if you break a rule, the society is definitely rewarding that. You can put these systems in place where you kind of incentivize people that if you are acting as a model citizen, you're doing all the right tasks, you can really look at getting a lot of benefits out of that. So that is along those lines. It can be a completely huge paradigm shift overall. If we can combine these entire smart cities and all the information that we are gathering, it can really shape the technology. But at the same time, I would really kind of would like to stress over here that security is absolutely crucial, right? If we get so penetrative and pervasive into people's privacy and life, right, security cannot be compromised. So we need to come up with something. So data is growing rapidly fast, right? We need to grow the same way in the security aspect of wealth and privacy aspect of wealth, so that a person's security and the privacy does not get invaded during the data boom that we are seeing right now.
Right. Well, that also reminds me of a episode of Black Mirror, TV show or a show on Netflix, for those who may not be aware, that actually painted this picture in a little bit of a comedic entertainment, but also a very scary future as to what that might look like. And there are positives and negatives of that as well, right? We've seen some of those activities happen throughout Asia, and the negative sides of that. If someone crosses the street and jaywalks, for instance, right, you're put up on a banner. And that's maybe not the right way to reward or
Yep.
distinguish individuals, but
Yep.
nonetheless, I think
Yep.
you're right. If you toss trash on the side of the sidewalk versus in the recycling bin or trash bin, there could be a consequence for that in the future. And so I think both you and Noble, in that reward system, right, the digital token reward system that we've been talking about, could be something of note. Gary, real quick, just a quick thought on artificial intelligence, how that plays, and maybe the opportunity around AI.
I think the infrastructure, just what happened today, I have 400 megabits here in my place, and these is the kind of challenges. Look at it, because here we are, in the economically most powerful country in the world today, and you can't even get stable internet connections at the fastest speed with the latest technology. Now, there's something wrong with the picture. You know what I mean? And the grid infrastructure of the U.S. is in the same boat. Think about it. Northern California, the infrastructure's antiquated. It can't live up to it. And now with the demands of the digital economy, we can't even, there's so many people trying to get bandwidth, it keeps cutting out all the time. So it's unbelievable, actually. I mean, I have a place in the heart of Silicon Valley, and you can't get the right kind of internet speeds in the heart of Silicon Valley, near Stanford University. It's crazy,
It is, and infrastructure is a very key part of that. As we mentioned, Noble and Harsh, this idea of smart cities, smart buildings, this is an infrastructure building, even smart cities themselves. There's also a mentality piece. We've got newer technology coming into play. So for those that are tuning in, if you're looking for some areas to start building, look at what's happening with Starlink. Starlink is being put out into the world, providing high-speed internet access to many around the world. And there's a number of projects similar to that, some successful, some not so successful at the moment, but we are moving towards that direction of greater connectivity. You've got 5G and soon to be 6G that has started to open up, again, that level of connectivity for people. When you look edge and the idea of edge computing and being able to add sensors in everything that we have, right? All devices, all vehicles, ourselves, everything has a sensor, therefore everything has the ability to compute. You've got endless possibilities. Pick your lane, pick your industry, and just go and try some of these things, because it will take a little bit of time, but we're all here ready for it as well. And gentlemen, I want to come around for closing thoughts and where you can be found online. I know we're having some connectivity issues, so
can I say one thing? Listen, cybersecurity is critically important. There's a reason the infrastructure of the UK went down. There's a reason the banks in the US went down. There are quantum computers that are being utilized today around the world in all kinds of different not good states. And there's probing taking place. We got to do something with cybersecurity. Seriously, it's critically important. And I don't think we think enough about it. It's unbelievable. Everything we talked about today is everything's going to be connected together. The 4-star admiral that was on my show, who was a #2 guy in the U.S. military, told me directly, they'll be able to flip a switch and turn everything off. And seriously, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, security and we'll come to closing thoughts here in a second, but security has been an afterthought for many years for all companies, unfortunately. And now it is becoming more relevant and prevalent than ever. I mean, it has to be a forethought, not an afterthought. How data is being handled, how data is being protected, how data is being shared. And this is where, again, those sensors and technologies like artificial intelligence, like blockchain, this is where smart contracts come into very unique positions where, it is very clear who and what can share data and what type of data with each other as well. And that data can be tracked. For better or for worse, we're still moving in that direction. But nonetheless, to Gary's point, security and cybersecurity is a huge area of focus, going back again to Noble's point around digital identity. So again, I want to come around for everyone for their closing thoughts where you can be found online to continue the conversation around a digital economy. Harsh, kick us off. Closing thoughts, and where can everyone find you to continue the conversation?
So closing thoughts on this definitely is the potential and the opportunity with smart cities is literally endless, right? At the same time, we need to kind of ensure that the security and infrastructure also grows proportionately, because without that, it could create a lot of difficulties and a lot of challenges, and even the adoption may be hampered. So you may have all the progress in the world in the smart city element, but without a proportionate growth in cybersecurity and privacy, there could be a huge pushback from the people as well. So to ensure that the growth needs to be hand in hand. So I would like to close with that. And if anyone wants to find me and want to discuss on this, I'll be happy to connect. I'm available on Facebook and LinkedIn at Harshetia. And if you want to join my Facebook group, would be happy to help you. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Harsh. Gary, to you, closing thoughts. Where can you be found online to continue the conversation?
Yeah, I mean, this is an exciting time where everything's, the Germans have a phrase, Gestalt, the sum of the parts equal the whole. Now, as we tie everything together, it's an incredible time. And especially with artificial intelligence and these intelligent assistants, the buddy, as Noble said, to be able to help us to be able to make sense of the data. It's an incredible time, but we need to look at cybersecurity, and we need to look at it very, very closely, because with everything tied together, it's very easy with the right kind of systems, especially quantum computers, to shut it off. So great opportunity, startups. If you're looking at something cool, AI, quantum computers is the way to go. My name is Gary Fowler. You can reach me on LinkedIn, Twitter, and it's great to see my friends today. It feels like a family, I got to tell you. Harsh, I get up in the morning, I see you, and here we are at lunch. Or dinner.
Absolutely. 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 And breakfast for Noble and I, and Noble with that in our morning coffee. Close us out with your closing thoughts and where you can be found online.
Yeah, my name is Noble Dracone. I'm with Dracone Capital Partners. We raise capital as well as invest in companies. Closing thoughts is that the future is now. You're right. We have all the technological pieces to do what we need to do. People have to remember that when Apple and Steve Jobs created the initial iPod, all the components were there. They actually just took the patents from multiple companies, smart hard drives, spinning wheel, micro screen, and then put the device together that allowed people to have portable music in their pockets. So the technology and all the information is here to make a better future and to make the next innovative product. So don't be afraid to just step in, and you don't have to create it, but pay attention to what's being out there. I can be reached on LinkedIn, Noble Dracone. I can find me on Twitter at Dracone. And good luck creating a new future.
Wonderful. Thank you, Noble, Gary, Harsh, for sharing your thoughts and insights again around today's digital economy and how that's going to impact the future of cities or smart cities as well. And to your audience, thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard, make sure you click subscribe, share the episode, and check out the archive on LATOKEN.com to hear more from Noble, Gary, and Harsh, along with the entire family of VCTV speakers from around the world as well. And if you'd like to be on a show like today, reach out to the team and or myself. We'll find that right spot for you. A big thank you to the LATOKEN team, to Maria and Hasmik for making VCTV possible every single day. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. You can find me everywhere online at Kyle Ellicott and on all social media platforms, as our speakers have mentioned as well, and they are in addition. With that, make sure when you do reach out when you do reach out to add context and let us know where you heard us, where you met us, and what you'd like to continue the conversation about. We're going to take a short little break, and at 11:30 a.m. Pacific, we'll be in Clubhouse to talk more on today's subject and break down all that happened this week in the blockchain and digital currency space as well. So tune in, join us there. With that, everyone have a wonderful day, a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you back here on VCTV soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.